This episode of Warp 5 is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek FM at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the non-profit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode or any other, please join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's B-A-B-E-L, into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, this is Dayton Ward, author of a whole bunch of Star Trek novels, and you're listening to Warp 5 on Trek FM.
How we doing, Trip? Ready when you are. Prepare for warp.
Course laid in, sir. Request permission to get underway. Let's go.
Welcome, Boomers, to another episode of Warp 5. I'm your host today, Brandon-Shea Mutala, and I'm still getting used to this now that Floyd's gone. So he normally did all of the intros for the episodes, which I was just fine with. So now I kind of got to take the reins here and lead the show. So if I crash this into Viridian 3, don't blame me. Well, oh wait, that's the wrong series. That's the wrong franchise.
Dude.
Joining me are my new co-hosts, Brandi Jackola. How are you doing, Brandi?
I am just peachy keen. It's a lovely day here in Utah. Not really. We have tons of inversion.
Yeah.
But that's okay as long as you stay inside.
How rough were the roads coming home? Like, were you worried of exploding vehicles or anything like that on your way home?
No, nothing like that. No one was carrying any unsecured nitroglycerin, so we're good.
Good. Also joining us today is Patrick Devlin. How are you doing, Patrick?
Doing good. Luckily, there's nothing crazy going on in my highways either.
Excellent. How's your passport? Is it all in order?
No.
No?
No.
So
slip a tenner in.
Just
Just slip a tenner in.
Yeah. I have a 10.
Right on. And also joining us for the episode tonight is very special guest, and special, I declare him special because of the way that he feels about Batman Returns. Joining us tonight is John Mills, co-host of Stage 9. How are you doing, John?
I'm pondering the fact that a kiss can be deadlier if you mean it. So there you go. You're going to throw Batman Returns at me, I'm going to throw a line at it from you. So there you go.
Excellent. Well, as you guys clearly can tell from that introduction, we are not talking about Enterprise or Batman Returns tonight. We're actually not talking about Batman Returns. We are going to continue along with our Warp 5 movie night. And just as a reminder, if you haven't listened along yet, we've done 2 previous episodes of our movie night. The first we covered For Whom the Bells Tolls with Mike Schindler, and then the second one we covered on Stage 9, but we also released as Warp 5 Special Number 3. We covered Sunset Boulevard. And what we're doing is we're just going through, one of the interesting things about Enterprise is they had movie night, which was like kind of a camaraderie, a way to sit down and relax and have fun, and they would watch old movies. And unfortunately, Mike's not here tonight because he's actually in Chicago right now watching Batman Returns in 35mm at the theater, so I'm a little envious of him. But he was going to be joining us for all of them, and he just couldn't make it tonight. And so we're just going to continue on without him, but he'll be here for our next movie night, which will be a lot of fun. But tonight, we're going to be discussing the French classic film, The Wages of Fear, directed by Henri-Georges Clouzot. And this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love it, and I'm about to find out what my co-hosts think of it. So we're going to kind of dive right in. If you guys haven't seen it yet, John, you borrowed this from Netflix DVD borrowing, right?
Yes, I actually watched physical media for this because I couldn't find any free streaming, and my wife refuses to let go of the past, and so we still get discs. And so I just take advantage of that, when the need arises. And so I will cop to the fact that I actually watched physical media. Everybody knows I have almost an allergic reaction to it. But I made the extra effort for this.
Excellent. I myself watched the Criterion Blu-ray edition. I've got all 3 versions of the Criterion for this: the original release, their 2-disc release, and the Blu-ray. So I will always fork over money for a better quality version of The Wages of Fear. And so basically, in a nutshell, we'll go over it. Patrick, do you want to give us a quick summary of the movie?
Yeah, sure. So basically the movie starts out with an hour of nonsense about being in a little town where nobody likes them. At this point, I wanted to space myself, so I didn't have to continue watching. But then they have to turn around and get nitrous glycerin to a mine because the mine's on fire, and the only way to put it out is to blow the mine or blow the fire. And they don't have anyone that'll drive. None of the union guys are willing to drive it because they won't get them the proper equipment. They won't get them the proper trucks. So they find 4 guys that are willing to do this for a bunch of money, but they're risking their lives. And the presumed idea is that they send 2 trucks because when one blows up, the second one will get there.
Mm. That lightly scratches the surface of what the movie is. There's a little bit more to that. So.
Yeah, a little bit more.
But basically it starts off in a nutshell. Like what I like about the first hour of this movie is it is a little slow. And the first time I watched the movie, I'm like, what is going on here? Because this has been heralded as one of the most, nail-biting, suspenseful films of all time. And you put this on, and the first hour of this movie is like, what is going on here? Like, it's pretty slow. But what's really going on in the first hour, to me, is it's building up the depression and the hopelessness that these people have. So all of these people are trapped in this unnamed Central American country for one reason or another. They end up here for various reasons. That most of them we don't really find out what's going on. But there's no way out of this town because plane tickets cost too much to get out of there. The roads don't go far enough, so they can't drive anywhere because it's kind of like a landlocked village. Like the roads go to the end of the mine, and like that's about as far as they go. So they can't fly out, they can't drive out, they can't walk out because it's too far. So they're basically trapped in this town, and there's no income, there's no money, and so everybody's really angry because they've got nothing to do except for drink and kind of fight all day. And so in order to have a last chance to get out of there, they get paid a massive sum of money to drive this dangerous nitroglycerin off to try and put the fire out. And that's when the movie really starts getting really interesting and really nail-biting. It's 2.5 hours long, and the last hour and a half is when it is really, really, really good. But I don't think you can watch the movie without having watched that first hour, and my co-hosts may disagree. Brandi, what do you think about that? Do you think that you could cut down that first hour? You can say yes, I won't cry.
No, not... There's some things I think it could be edited down to probably about 30 minutes and still give us the same character backgrounds, because honestly it was just all really uncomfortable to me because all of the stuff with oh my gosh, I've already forgotten the girl, Linda, is that her name, was just horrifying to me because she's basically treated like an object. All they think of in this place as far as women are they're just things to be used, apparently. And I have a real problem with that. Now, I know the time in which it was made and all of that, but that doesn't mean that I enjoy watching that.
Right.
So, and I also didn't appreciate how the main character so quickly threw over his buddy for this new guy in town. And I'm just like, really? Wow. And I also just started chuckling when I realized there was a Mario and Luigi rooming together.
Yes, there is a Mario and Luigi rooming together. So
it's a prequel to Mario Brothers. Yeah.
Patrick?
So, yeah.
Patrick, what do you think of the start of the film?
No, it was just way too slow. Like Brandi said, there were scenes that could have been cut out. I didn't need to see the girl like crawl across the floor and be pet like a kitten. That was a little weird. Mm-hmm. Even for the time, that was a little weird. But I don't know. You could, like she said, you could cut out a lot of this. You could show that they don't like immigrants because that's one of the things they call them American tramps and stuff like that, and tell them to get papers or whatever. You could knock those scenes down a little bit and save a whole bunch of time and probably make this whole movie 2 hours instead of 2 hours and 28 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Now, I am going to tell you one of the interesting things here. So, Linda, who's the woman in this film here, right? She's Mario's. I got the impression that she's his date, like his girlfriend or something like that, right? In this little country, but she's played by Vera Clouseau, and who's Henri Georges Clouseau's wife. So I think that's kind of interesting that she's this woman who's basically getting kicked down as a dog, right? Because, you know, she works in this bar, and everybody in the bar treats her terribly. Like not the customers, but the people that she works with. There's a black woman that's working there who seems to be like this guy's right-hand man, and she's kind of like always watching her to make sure that she's doing her job and stuff. And you know, she is stealing from them as well. I mean, at the beginning, what was it, matches that she stole? Right at the beginning, stuffed in the flour.
Yeah, because no matter what, they can all afford cigarettes, can't they?
I'm sure cigarettes were cheap.
They were a lot cheaper back then, and addiction is a hell of a thing. As a reformed smoker, you find a way to pay to get cigarettes. Oh boy, do you ever! That is
and it was
for
just
sure.
so commonplace back then. Everybody smoked.
Yeah,
they smoked on television. They smoked everywhere. Everybody smoked. That was just the thing you did.
Yeah. It was Chesterfield's "Tickle the T-Zone" was the ad campaign, I think, something like that.
Oh, I've seen a few in my time too. Yeah. Some really weird ones.
Yeah, for sure.
John, how did you feel about the start?
I got to be honest with you that I wouldn't cut any of it, because by the time you're through that first hour, you don't just have a sense that these are all people who don't really like each other and don't really want to be with each other. They're all looking for somebody who is an escape in some way. And some people can find it and some people cannot. And but then you also have the one good guy who is there, but he winds up being used as well. And so I wouldn't cut it down at all, because by the time you get to them being in the truck, you realize how awful all of their lives are and how awful they all are to each other, and that deeper philosophical question, that sort of lie that everybody tells themselves, that if I just got out of here, if I just changed my circumstances, things about my life would be better. And it's that whole driving impulse and the question, therefore, of would they really? You look at the way these people treat other people. Would escape really make them better? And then would it just allow them to be awful on a larger scale? And then you also get that sense of desperation of wanting to get out, of that feeling of being trapped. So I was fine with the beginning. I like the slow boil, and that's just how I guess that's just how I'm wired. I like the fact that they didn't make anybody except maybe one or two people even remotely sympathetic. Like, everybody in there was just awful. But were they awful because they were awful by nature, or were they awful because of their circumstances? I liked seeing that interplay go back and forth, personally. I thought it was interesting.
See, watching this again here, so we've got this character that comes into town, Mr. Joe, right? And he's we don't really know what happened, but he was in a city, something happened, he runs to the airport and says, I got $50, where can I go? And that's why he ends up in this village. And somehow Yves Montagn's character Mario and Senior Joe, they recognize that they're either from the same area, or maybe they went for the same school, because they're whistling a tune that they both know. So somehow they have this connection over this whistling song. I still don't know what that is, but I'm okay not knowing. Does anybody know what that connection is and how they got connected by this whistling tune? Is that something that went past everybody's head?
I don't know what the tune is from, but all I got was just that they both knew it, so it signified some sort of shared identity that they could latch onto.
Mm-hmm. Brandi?
Yeah, all I knew was that they were from the same area. They were both from France. Okay. They were both from Paris. Okay. So that's all I got. I don't know anything about the tune either.
So this Joe comes into town, and he's acting like he's this big wig because he's got a nice suit, and for some reason everybody just assumes he's somebody special, right? And so because of this false importance that he has, people are willing to do things for him that they normally wouldn't do, right? Like the owner of this bar is like basically giving him a tab, and Senior Joe is honestly, in my opinion, he's the catalyst for all this antagonism between all of these people, because at the beginning of the film, the main men that don't have any jobs or whatever, they're just kind of sitting around this bar, just sitting there. They don't seem antagonistic towards each other than anybody except for the owner of the bar, right? And it's not until Joe comes into the picture and Mario starts spending time with him and developing a friendship with him that the other people in the village, like Mario's roommate Luigi and this German guy, start to go head to head with each other. Like, did you guys catch that as well? That Joe is the kind of the catalyst for this antagonism?
Yeah, I caught that. Joe's character kind of confused me, because when he comes in, someone, and I can't remember right now who, but someone asked, "Oh, you know Joe?" And the response was, I think it was the bar owner, said, "Only by reputation."
It wasn't the bar owner; it was somebody else. Yeah, they know him by reputation.
It never went any deeper than that, though.
Yeah,
like, there was no explanation as to what reputation.
Right.
So he confused me.
Well, but wasn't it? I mean, it was Mario that said that, only by reputation.
No,
because
it was
the whole
somebody
thing,
else that said that.
It was somebody
Mario
else that
asked
said that?
a question to somebody, and they responded with, "Only by reputation."
And then the bartender brought Joe in there and is like, "Oh, come in, help yourself." And then Mario asked the bartender, he's like, "Do you know who this guy is?" And the bartender's like, "He's your friend," you know. So like, nobody knows who this guy is, and just because he's projecting this air of confidence and importance, they're just like bending over backwards for this guy, like right off the bat, which I think is very odd.
Yeah, but I think it speaks to that idea of desperation, because here's somebody who appears to be of means in their midst. They immediately see maybe a chance of escape. If I befriend this person, I can leave. What struck me when he first walked off the plane was I looked at him, and in his costume, I have no idea if this is the case. I have to do some research, but he looks like the antagonistic leader of the pack in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, who steals the Cross of Coronado, and then Indy shows up. Seriously, like visually they look alike, and I would not at all be surprised if Lucas and Spielberg were making a reference to Wages of Fear in some way, because I swear to you, the first thing I thought of was, he looks like that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's I think another interesting thing is, he has barely any money. He has just enough to take this flight to this rinky-dinky little town. But what I notice is apparently it costs more to leave than to get there.
Yeah.
There's like an interesting play there of once you get here, you can't get out. People can get there, no problem. They just can't leave. I thought that was a really neat mechanism there.
And the town itself is just so poor. They show it with these bugs everywhere, these naked children running around, these, sick people kind of everywhere. And the only place for anybody to get any work is this Southern Oil Company that's, taking oil out of the land. It's the only place to get work. And Mario, who's Luigi's roommate, is working on building something there. And, he's crushing bricks and, making concrete and stuff like this to build a building, right? So... Sorry, Patrick, you were going to say something?
I don't remember now.
Okay, sorry.
It was a fleeting moment. Oh, no.
Yeah.
I was going to say, not only is it more expensive to leave, it's ridiculously, substantially more expensive to leave.
Yeah.
Right.
It was $50 to come, $1,000 to leave.
Mm-hmm. Right. And actually, I'm glad you brought up the children at the beginning, because the children at the beginning, I think there's an echo years later at the beginning of The Wild Bunch, because there's a similar opening scene of children torturing insects.
Okay.
At the open of that film. So now I'm like, wow, was Peckinpah making a direct reference to Wages of Fear with that?
Probably.
So that would be interesting.
Yeah. This is a pretty important film, in film history. People study it and they've gone back to it, and it's really a beautifully shot film, and I really, really love the story here. Now, Brandi, you had mentioned, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about it, the toxic masculinity that's in this environment here. So let's talk a little bit about this here, because until you mentioned that, I never considered it that way. And to me, I just always interpreted it as like these tensions are high when people are at their lowest. You know, it's what I like about zombie films, when, you know, after a certain amount of time, humanity just completely degrades. And that's kind of how I always interpreted it, their situation there. So let's hear what you think.
Well, the thing that really just capped it for me was when Luigi comes into the bar and he's dressed to the nines and he just wants to celebrate with his friends. Because I can't remember if this is before or after his final diagnosis, but he pretty well knows he's dying.
It would have been before, because he got his diagnosis when they were doing the test for the trucks.
Yeah, but he knew. Yeah. He knew he was dying, whether or not the doctor had confirmed it. I think in his heart of hearts, he knew. Because he can't breathe very well, and he's always coughing, and he knows it's the concrete dust. But he just feels like celebrating. He's buying his friends drinks. And Joe just has a problem with that.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why does Joe have a problem with that? Because suddenly the focus is off of him? So he gets up and basically takes the champagne that Luigi bought, shakes it up, and sprays it all over them.
Yeah.
That's not okay. And I mean, yeah, granted, it's an establishment of I'm the top cat here, but that is toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. You would never see women doing that crap. So it's just this whole thing of I am the best here, and I'm going to prove it by wrecking you guys in front of everyone else. And then, of course, Luigi gets understandably upset and is going to hit him with the bottle, and then all of a sudden, Joe's got a gun. And I'm like, really? Really? This is just now every bit of toxic masculinity that I think I can take. And I was just like, oh. And then, you know, Luigi takes the high road and just walks away and says, I'm not a killer. And Joe acts like you gotta have guts to kill somebody. No. You gotta have guts not to kill somebody. It's easy to kill somebody. It's hard to not do that. It's harder to walk away and be a better person.
See, it's interesting because of what happens with Joe's character and how he turns by the end of the movie, right? And like he shows his true colors. Right.
Almost immediately after they start out in the trucks. And I'm just like, yep, that's toxic masculinity for you. They're so afraid of who they really are that, oh, I gotta put on this brave front and be a big man. And it's just, no, thank you. It holds no interest to me at all. It's a story I've seen before, and I have no interest in watching it again. So I'm not saying the actual story overall, but the story of that character. Seen it before, don't care. Don't like it, don't care.
Now, with these people in this town here, before we get onto the trucks, there is my favorite shot of the whole film, and one of my favorite parts of it, there's this one character who's this tragic young character he has a passport and he has a visa, and it's almost ready to expire. And anybody that comes into town, he like begs them, please give me money to get out of town. Look, I've got this. I got to get out of here. I need to get my life back on track. And he's really young. And after everybody gets hired on to drive the trucks, he writes a letter to his mom, and he lies in the letter saying that he got the job, and asks them to mail the letter, and he ends up hanging himself. But what happens is that Linda goes outside to pray for the safety of Mario and the guys, but the camera like pans past his feet, just hanging from this tree, and it's almost like I remember the first time I saw this movie, I'm like, what was that? You know, because it just pans by it, and it doesn't address it for another 90 seconds or something like that, until Linda finally notices he's hanging there and screams, and then it has this really neat shot of underneath looking up. But it's that first shot that just passes by like nonchalantly, this hanging boy, and it's like I just love that shot, and I think that it's like almost it sums up the movie right there, and that's what the movie is about, is like the death of this young boy, almost, to me, right? I don't know, I love that part so much. It's tragic, but it's great. So did that impact anybody the way it impacted me?
Well, I have to say I was not surprised, because I thought, no, that kid's resolved. He's going to go kill himself. I didn't expect it to be hanging, and so when I saw the feet, I'm like, oh, no. Oh, man, I don't want to be right about this. And yeah, I think that it was a really well shot movie. I don't have a problem with any of that. And I understand its cultural importance. I understand its importance in movie history. I understand all of that. That doesn't mean I like it, but it is beautifully filmed. Beautifully filmed. Even that child at the beginning who is stood up and turned around, I'm like, oh, he's Donald Ducking it. Oh, wow. Shirt, no pants. Okay. Okay. Was not expecting that, but I get it. And so that that little thing just set the tone. And I'm like, I know what kind of town this is. Yeah. I know exactly what kind of town this is exactly. Now. So, but that's a great scene. It is a great scene.
John, anything you want to add on the beginning portion of the film?
No. I mean, the thing is with the hanging. I mean, it's I guess the first volley in its then the protracted discussion about death and the nature of death and our reactions to death that. That then propel, the rest of the plot. And so like it's almost like the overture to the remaining symphony is that hanging, because we see a reaction to death and we see people's first reactions to death. And then the rest of the film during the journey is an explanation of everybody's reactions of an average person's reactions to, these things that happen, these things that are a part of life. Yeah. So, Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go into... Or Patrick, sorry, I missed you there. Is there anything else you want to add on the
no, I mean,
part?
I thought the hanging scene was interesting. I also thought it kind of foreshadowed what was to come with the rest of the characters. Like, they were all, like, right on the edge. That's kind of the whole point of the movie, right? They're on the edge the whole time they're driving these trucks. So, yes. So I thought it was good. I thought it was perfectly placed in the movie too. That it happened just at the right moment of the movie, really, because they didn't really put anything else after it or before it that kind of took away from that particular scene. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of my opinion on that one.
Right on. Okay, so we're going to go into the next bit. We're going to be talking in depth about it. I don't think we can, so we're going to spoil some of the things on it if you haven't seen the movie yet. This is quite, from this point on in the film, like, it is quite suspenseful, and there's some really amazing plot points that are going to be coming up, and we will be talking about them. So we'll give you the warning here. But I remember the first time I watched this movie, and from this point on, like, I was on the edge of my seat for the rest of this film. So they've got these two trucks, and they're transporting this liquid nitroglycerin, and it's like the first thing that happens is they're walking it up this ramp, like they're carrying it, they're like in these big jerry cans, and one guy like almost trips, and like right from there it's just like, okay, this is what kind of movie this is going to be. You're going to be faked out a number of times over the next little bit, and I love it.
Well, what I found interesting about that was, and I think this is the payoff of that first build-up, of the previous hour or what have you, is you suddenly... I found myself... It was the first tell of how invested I was in finding out what was going to happen, was when that guy almost tripped. I don't typically react that strongly because I figure, I know how long the movie is, so I know how long, the truck's not going to blow up, but I reacted as if, oh, geez. And I sat up, and I realized in that moment that that's how I knew the film had me, was the fact that I reacted to that moment as strongly as I did. Mm-hmm. I thought that was cool.
Patrick, did that affect you at all?
Yeah, the sad part is, though, I just wanted them all to blow up. They were so horrible leading up to this. I knew they couldn't blow up at that moment because, again, like you said, there's another hour and a half of this movie, so that would be a really boring black screen. But, like, I would just... spoiler alert, I wanted them to die the entire movie. I mean, like, every time... And there's a million times they get really close, and I'm kind of cheering for
for Cliff. Wait a minute, even Luigi? Even poor Luigi?
I guess, I don't know.
Mamma mia, poor Luigi.
You know what? He got involved, so...
Yeah, but I mean, he's like the guy, of the four of them, he's the one that is, like, his desperation is the most sympathetic, the most palpable. He isn't doing it for any other reason than he's literally going to die if he doesn't leave.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else for him to do. And so he's, like, I think he's the character that keeps you feeling any sort of human emotion for these people is like, oh, he's the guy I want to make it through. I'm like, I don't care what happens to the other three. I want
Luigi.
him to make it to the finish line. Please let the good guy get there.
Yeah, maybe. You know what? I got to be honest. It really took me quite a few tries to get through the first hour. So I think I missed some of that in the watching. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really build a connection to any of them, but I knew I couldn't stand Joe and Mario. So if everyone had to go for Joe and Mario to go, I'm cool with that.
Now, let me ask you this question here, John, and let me ask you this question, Brandi. So, John, with what you're saying about Mario being the one that you want to survive, do you think that you would still feel that way for him had he not had that scene where Joe completely trashed on him in that bar, where Joe slapped him around and sprayed him? Like, or do you think that scene may have helped you feel the sympathy towards Mario?
I felt
Luigi.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Brady. Do you want to go? I don't
go ahead. I was just saying
I
it's
said
Luigi,
the wrong
not
name.
Mario.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, damn Nintendo.
Look, yeah, right.
I used to like the plumbers.
I would have felt sympathy for Luigi in any circumstance.
Okay.
I think that the scene where Mario acts the ass toward him is what makes me hate Mario. Like, Mario is not a good person, and I don't like him, but when he openly mistreats Luigi is when I hate him, is when I make the decision, I don't want him to make it through this. I don't want him to make it to the end at all. So I think that what it does is it just ramps up. It is sort of that turning it up a notch so that you're not just disliking him, you're rooting against him in that moment. Like, none of his desperation is sympathetic. You can't reason away, well, he's behaving this way because he's just so desperate to get out of there. You find out that at his core, he's a jerk. And and it speaks to that theme of, will leaving this town really change anybody? And I think that scene in and of itself says, no, it won't. He's not going to be any different when he has money or when he gets out of here. This is just who he is.
See, I hated Mario when he threw Luigi's pants on the floor.
Right. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. Well, see, I had an older brother, so, sometimes my older brother would do that to me, so, maybe I was, I was like, he's just being a jerk in the moment, so I don't know.
Brandi, what did you think about Luigi? Is he the one that you were rooting for?
Yes, actually, I really liked Luigi and Bimba. Now, we don't get as much backstory on Bimba, but every word that he said made me believe that he was a good person. And he was one of those people that literally had nothing to lose. He was an orphan, and he had no family. No one was going to mourn him if he died. And, perhaps in his mind he was thinking, well, why not? If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And if I die, no one will care. And in fact, I watched the movie all in one sitting, and my husband had been gone for most of it. And he comes back and he just looks at the screen and sees Luigi and Bimba, and he says, "Oh, you got a goth in this movie?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's German too. And he's like, "Oh yeah." So, because he's just Bimba is very sad. He is very sad, and it made me feel sad for him. But Bimba and Luigi are never awful to each other. They are a team. Right. They support each other. They listen to each other. They enjoy each other's company. And they prove what kind of people they are under the worst possible conditions. They prove that they're good people. And so I was rooting for them. However, I knew without a shadow of a doubt, when this whole mission was proposed, I knew that they were all going to die in one way or another. I did not expect any of them to survive, so I was not surprised at anyone's deaths.
Well, I was surprised by one, but we'll get to that near the end here. Now, so after this, so they leave on the mission, they get started, they get going, and we get this first instance of, like, are they going to blow up? And one thing that I love about this movie is that they really do a good job of explaining to the audience what's going on. Like, when I first saw this movie, I don't know anything about dynamite. I don't know anything about nitroglycerin. So when they take that small drop in the office and drop it and show just how one drop hitting the ground can make a small explosion like this, it shows you for people that don't know what's going on, what this stuff can actually do. And when they're talking about this next instance of driving over a really bumpy road, and how if you drive a certain speed, the shocks will absorb the bumps better. I don't know that stuff. Like, I still don't know that stuff as a man. Like, I don't know much about vehicles and things like that. So they're explaining you either have to go incredibly slow to handle the bumps one at a time slowly, or you have to go incredibly fast so that your vehicle can absorb all the shocks. And so we get to this part where there's like a long stretch of road that they call the washboard, and it's incredibly bumpy. And the first group of people go through, they start having trouble with their trucks, so they have to go slow, and the other people decide to go fast. So we get to this point where you think that the fast car, they can't start slowing down because then they'll start vibrating. They might rear end the other vehicle, and then it's all over. So here we are, our first nail-biting scene right at the beginning. Brandi, did this work for you?
Well, sure, except I knew that nothing was going to happen because there was still like an hour and a half of the movie left. So, see, that's part of the problem is I knew how long the movie was, so I'm like, well, they're not going to blow up yet. No, this won't be it. But it is one of those situations where I felt slightly concerned. So, but, honestly, I was just like, just blow up, just blow up, just blow up before you get to Luigi and Bimba. But, that's because that's the only thing I found to like was Luigi and Bimba. It's the only thing I found to like as far as characters in this film. So I was more concerned when it was them going through the peril than I was ever concerned with Mario and Joe. I was just like, just go away. I'm sick of listening to you.
I want to speak to that though, Brandi, because I think it's so interesting in that. Especially in the modern mass market film age, is there's an obsession with making everybody who's a main character has to be likable. They have to be test audience approved, focus group approved, as it were. And I think maybe one of the things I actually responded to with this film is that it doesn't feel the need to do that. It's telling a story and it's examining a deep philosophical question about our approaches to death and tension and all of those things. And by making two of the main characters reprehensible people that I feel no sympathy for, it, I think, posits that whole underlying thing of like, death doesn't care whether you're a good person or a bad person. And, and one of them, even has that philosophy. It's like, well, if it happens, it happens. I can't really care about it. And yet the person who says that is one of the people who is one of the most, boorish and terrible ones, says, it's so... I just think it's interesting, and I actually would enjoy more films. I think Tarantino operates in this sort of space where he makes main characters who are deplorable and you don't like them, but he uses it to great effect. And I think that this film, from my perspective, successfully does that. And I think that's probably why I reacted positively to it overall.
Well, no, I understand that, and I'm not saying that all main characters have to be likable, because as long as there's one thing that I can attach to and root for, then I'm good. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to care about what happens to that reprehensible character, because I just kind of feel like, yeah, you deserved that, buddy. So,
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I get that.
I totally get your point, and I agree with it. Because it's brave to make jerks your main characters.
See, this is so fascinating because I see these characters completely different from how you guys are talking about them as well. Now, before I mention something here, we forgot to mention the fact that Joe wasn't originally hired for this mission. Somebody else was, yeah. And then Joe killed him, right? So
okay, so if he killed him, how come he's in the final scene in the bar when they're all dancing? He's in that scene. I saw him in that scene. Oh, yeah.
Okay, then maybe he didn't.
Yeah, he's in there. He's in there dancing.
Well, I think that speaks to Joe's cowardice. Is that in a sense, it doesn't matter. Joe is all talk.
Yes.
So it's perfectly believable that he shows up and says, "No, I killed him," and it's all bravado.
But he doesn't say that he killed him. That's the thing.
No.
Because
right,
they said,
it's an assumption.
Yes,
assumption
he lets
is there,
them make
'cause
the
they're like,
assumption.
I don't remember the German guy's name. I don't know.
Yeah, but it feeds his his sense of identity to, it makes these people respect and fear him. He's a big man again if they believe he did something bad, and he doesn't need to do it. So I think that that works either way.
See, I got to check that out again because I've seen this movie 20 times, I'm sure, and I've never noticed him at the end scene there. I got to go check that out.
Because right now, tell me I'm not crazy. He was the older guy in the plaid shirt, sometimes wore a hat, had the wire rim glasses. Yeah, he was definitely in that final scene.
I have never noticed him. I've seen this movie 20 times.
Definitely.
Wow, I got to check it out.
Because I'm just like, oh wait, there he is. Oh,
so that
I guess
completely
he's not
changes
dead.
my perspective of Joe now because I'm like, but it fits more with his character than if he didn't kill him. Because what I see with these characters is by the end of the movie I feel sorry for Joe, and I don't want him to die because he's such a pathetic character, and I don't want Mario to die, and I like him because I see his character has changed from this coward at the beginning who's simply following this Joe around to try and get something out of him, I think, to the end where he's leading this mission kind of thing, right? And he has to take charge because Joe's such a coward, right? But his character builds and grows. So by the end, I'm cheering for Mario, which is why I hate the ending of the movie so much, right?
Yeah, because he just blows it all at the end, doesn't he?
For crying out loud, I hate the ending of this movie so much.
But see, the ending of the film, in and of itself, I think speaks. I think it's debatable whether he actually changes or simply becomes the alpha of the relationship.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say.
He dies because he does exactly what Joe tells him he does and is his main character flaw of he never thinks more than 10 feet ahead of himself. Somebody who has gone through this, who has matured, who has succeeded, maybe is going a little bit slower and not driving recklessly down the switchbacks. I think it speaks more to the fact that he doesn't change. He simply becomes dominant. And, never mind the fact that he very slowly rolls over Joe's leg. If anything, that moment would make me sympathetic for Joe because in that moment I look at him and I say his bravado, his toxicity, whatever you want to call it, comes from a place of such pathetic loneliness and fear that I feel sympathy for him in the sense of like a almost like a wounded rabid animal where it's like if there was some way I could help you, I would do it because I feel pity for you because what a terrible feeling you must have inside your soul. Whereas, Mario is just like, he's stop, don't do this. My leg's in the way. And Mario's like, hey, it's your fault that I'm stuck because your dumb leg. It's like,
Mario can't stop
that's
in that
heartless.
situation. It takes.
No. See, the thing is,
he gets stuck.
I understand he gets stuck. He's going to get stuck either way. And the human thing to do is not to roll over a defenseless person, no matter how awful that person is. To lack the basic human decency to spare their life in that circumstance, you're a dirtbag, man.
Patrick.
I actually have an interesting take on this. Hold on.
Please.
So this movie, when did this movie?
53.
When was this? Okay, so this is the height of the union movement, by the way, across the world. And it's made very obvious that the company is hiring scabs.
Yes.
And they make a huge scene about this. And I think a lot of that has to do with why that scene even takes place in the first place. Because the fight against non-union was that they do work unsafe and that they would run over each other's legs just to get a job done. So I think also, by the way, I'm a union tradesman. Another reason why I want them all to die in this movie. So I don't like the fact that they're taking union jobs from people and that they're doing it unsafely. But sorry.
But none of the union guys wanted to do it.
You're right, because you shouldn't. Because you shouldn't do it.
It's not a safe job. It's not a safe job.
Right.
I'm a shop steward in a
safe.
union environment as well. I'm a shop steward in a union environment. So,
but it's not even that it's not safe. it's kind of ridiculously over the top. Like, they won't go get the right trucks or the right ballast. They won't. They're literally just putting cans of nitroglycerin when dynamite exists. You know, like, there's other ways of doing this job that are way safer. I don't even know why a mine at that time would have nitroglycerin on hand, because dynamite existed in 18.
But it was an oil field. It was an oil field.
Oil fields use dynamite.
Well, okay, that's
oil field. Sorry, not a mine. But
would I see? The thing is, I don't know enough about it. Like, is nitroglycerin cheaper? Like, was it just cheaper for them to do it that
dynamite
way?
is dynamite. Okay, so Alfred Nobel invented dynamite to make nitroglycerin safe. That's the whole impetus of making dynamite, and actually that's why when in his last will and testament he created the Nobel Prize, which everyone knows about the Peace Prize, but there was also chemistry, physics, and all those other sciences. But he actually invented. His family was in explosives. His father was in explosives. His brother took the company over than he did, and he literally invented nitroglycerin for situations like this, so this wouldn't happen.
Okay, so well, I mean that adds a layer because then I don't know. Yeah,
right. Sorry. Yes.
I don't know the company's motivation then as to whether it's cost saving or faster, or they just don't want to fly the dynamite in.
Maybe they can't get the dynamite in time, but then why do they have the nitroglycerin instead of dynamite?
Right. The nitroglycerin. There should be no nitroglycerin kind of period. There definitely shouldn't be 200. What did they say? 200 gallons or something like that. I think.
Yes.
Was the translation on that, but they definitely shouldn't have that kind of amount. And not to mention, when Joe stopped short before going over the washboard, they would have exploded there. You know, like
there's some suspension of disbelief on these vehicles.
Should have exploded.
Yeah, you had to just be like,
should have exploded.
Should have been like, I guess it didn't shift some magic way. But
I'll say something. I'll interrupt and say something about the remake here. So in the remake, it actually is dynamite, but the dynamite is leaking the nitroglycerin because it's so old. Right, so
spoilers. I haven't seen the remake yet. Come on, man.
And
no, I'm just
when they're
teasing.
transporting
I'm kidding.
the dynamite, they've encased it in sand to help absorb the shock. So it's more believable in the remake, right? So they've got something to help absorb the shocks. But there's a heck of a lot of suspension of disbelief with when they're all like, the slightest fart could make this thing explode, right? And then they're like, the craziest things going on here, and they're fine, right? So
yeah. Well, like that dead stop. But I did like the scene with the washboard, because that is absolutely true. I drove smaller trucks, like those size trucks, for a while, and the worst speed to be at in a truck is like 15, 20 miles an hour. You bounce all over the world. I mean, you're just da-dong, da-dong, da-dong. Meanwhile, if you go slow, you feel the ups and downs, but you don't really jerk. Mm-hmm. And if you fly, you actually just hit the tops of everything. So you never come down into the valleys. All that could be ruined if there was one bad rain and made a bigger hole somewhere. But
yeah. Now, anything else to add here before we move on to the next scene?
No, we can go to the next scene from me.
So, okay, now if I remember my chronology here, the next scene is when they got to turn on that partially constructed bridge. Is that the next one?
Yes.
Yep.
This is the greatest thing ever, this scene. Because both trucks are put in a crazy situation with this bridge, and they're both are suspenseful for different reasons on this same little bridge. So what's happened is there's this switchback that's going up the mountain, and somebody has started to create an expansion of the road using wood so that it goes out a little bit more, but it's not completed yet. So they have to go around this really sharp turn, but they have to back up their trucks onto this bad wood so that they can straighten out and then continue up the switchback. And like the first truck to go up is Luigi and Bimba. And it's great because one of the pieces of wood breaks and a tire falls through, and it's all muddy and they can't get out. And it's one of those things where it just happens so quickly that you're just like, ugh, right? And so they got to get out of that one there. But to me, the other one is even better. But we'll get to there too. Does anybody else agree that this is the best part, or is it...
I really enjoyed these two scenes. I love the way they showed the back wheels, because they're double wheels on the back. One of them actually overhangs and comes off the little wooden. I want to call it a bridge. Actually. Yeah, I want to call it a bridge, but it's really a plankway, really. Like a little plankway before they get to the part where they have to back up on. And when you see it slide off, you're like, oh, there you go. darn it, he didn't go.
Patrick, you're an evil man.
Look, I'm also the guy who's been begging Archer to kill somebody for like an entire season of retrospects now. So,
oh, Patrick, we need to talk more. So much more.
I think these two scenes, the interesting thing about them is it again highlights the difference between Luigi and Bimba and Mario and Joe. Because when Luigi and Bimba encounter a hurdle, they work together, they figure it out, they're with each other, whereas Joe and Mario are two people who happen to be working toward the same goal, but they're not working together for it at all. And there's even in the release of tension, there's like this anger that Mario feels that he didn't kill Joe. He's mad that he thought he killed him, but he didn't kill him. Yeah. And it's like, this is a guy you've almost ditched like 3 or 4 times, and you claim not to care what happens when, something bad happens to somebody. It's just, it's so weird, but it's so effective in underlining those core differences of the two sets of people. Mm-hmm.
That's a very good point. You've got it spot on that, these two groups of people are functioning in completely different manners. That's wonderful. Brandi?
Yeah, this scene actually did make me nervous, and I'll tell you why. Has anyone ever been to the Redwood Forest in Oakland area?
No, I have not.
The way, it's beautiful. Oh, definitely go. It's amazing. But the way to get up there, at least as far as 1990, the way to get up there is through a bunch of switchbacks. Fill a bus full of high school students and do that. Yeah. It was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. There were times that I thought we were not going to make the turn. And I thought, okay, apparently I should have made out my last will and testament before I got on this bus. I didn't know that. And so this scene, this pair of scenes really, with the two different trucks, really did actually make me nervous because I have felt what that is like, just trying to get around that steep curve and not die. Yeah.
See,
we had an excellent bus driver, by the way. Excellent.
Mario and Joe's truck is bigger and heavier, and they've mentioned it a couple times, than Bimba and Luigi's truck. And so Bimba and Luigi, they have one tire go through, and they end up getting out of it. And Joe, when they get there, Joe actually takes a knife, and he shows how soft this wood is by pushing his knife in easily into this wood. So they have to back their truck up on the other side where it's not quite so soft. But that shot, when he's backed it up, and that ass end of that truck is so long, and it's like hanging over the end. It's such a beautiful shot that it just keeps going over and over and over. And you're like, they are going to back over this thing. And then he drives forward, and there's some weird hook on the side of the vehicle that catches on.
Yes.
Oh,
well, wait! You're missing a part in there too, because when he backs up, he's yelling, "Stop! When? Stop! When?" Something along. When should I stop? When should I stop?
And he doesn't hear him
because he's gone.
Yeah.
The little dumpster thingy falls over. That's when he jumps out, and he can't find Joe. And Joe is actually running up the mountain the other way to hide behind a rock. For apparently no reason, because he gets right back in the truck afterwards. But he was running away at that moment.
Well, because he thought the truck was going to go over and explode. Like, that's why he was hiding.
Right, and that's the thing, is that's like why I can't blame. I can't blame him for running in that moment, but I can't fathom why Mario isn't a little more understanding of why he thought the truck was going to explode. Because I would have thought the same thing.
Oh man!
Yeah, and the funny thing is, when you see that area, it's not actually like a cliff. It's not like super high up because there's obviously. I mean, he could jump down. Mario jumped down from the side and was looking for Joe. Yeah. So it's not so much that it was steep, but that movement and truck and boom. Yeah. So that's what made it so tense. Is it wasn't the height; it was that rotten wood and. That actually did hold suspense for me, so well done.
Well, this was great because it was like 3 things right in a row. Every time you thought they were out of the woods, like, all right, they made it around that part, now they're backing up, good. Uh-oh, they're going to back off the edge. Oh, no. Oh, man, he's got the cable caught. Now he's going to take out the whole bridge. Like, it was just one thing right after another during this scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he drives forward. There's this hook on the side of the vehicle for some reason, right? That's just a
I'm
death
guessing
trap,
for a tarp.
right?
Tie down loads. But, yeah, it's a
tarp or something.
horrible, horrible placement for this particular scene.
And then whatever it is, like some type of metal suspension string is to help hold the bridge up, gets caught on this hook. And so Mario's trying to drive forward, and he doesn't realize he's caught on it. And when he finally gets up enough motion to go, the string breaks, and as he's driving up the hill, the thing like collapses beneath him, and it's just like, oh my goodness. So
and it blew into like a billion pieces.
Yes,
it didn't just tip over and fall. Like, it exploded like in a video game. It was kind of a little ridiculous how much wood came flying out of that little bridge.
Well, it wasn't quite an explosion.
It was rotten wood. It was waiting to fall apart. It was just looking for the right moment to do it. My first thought actually when it fell was, how the hell are they going to get back down? Like, I'm like, that's still a really tricky turnaround point. I hope they send him back in a car or something like a skateboard, something tiny.
Yeah, because they send him back in that truck on that same road at the end of the... What the heck? Oh, man.
Yeah, it didn't matter.
Yeah, it ended up not mattering.
Maybe there was another way. Who knows?
We should have taken that there then.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not as dangerous if you don't have a truck full of nitroglycerin. So you can make that really shallow turn or whatever.
I think that's a great point, Brandi. Yeah, you're not gonna have to go around it as gingerly as you did the first time.
Explain.
Yeah. Wonderful.
There you go.
Oh, I love it. It works for me totally. Our next one, they come across, I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's a giant boulder in the road.
Yes.
So they've gone as far as they can. They're driving up this road, and there's a gigantic boulder in the middle of the road, and they're like, how are we going to get across this? And Bimba just looks back at the truck, and we see the giant sign on the front of it that says explosives. So they come up with this crazy, time-delayed awesomeness to drop a hammer onto some nitroglycerin and blow the rock up. And this is also the greatest scene. Somehow this is like Schrodinger's movie, and there's like multiple greatest scenes in this movie, right? So, what do you think about this? Again, so we got Bimba and Luigi working together, coming up with a solution, right?
Well, what I find interesting about this scene is when somehow they were able to drill a hole by slamming down just a piece of wrought iron, but in less than a half hour. But when Mario and Joe get up, even Bimba even said, I think it was Bimba, he says to him, everyone gets to say here, even you coward. So even at that point, they were still giving Joe a say. And then, they ended up filling the nitrous glycerin into the hole that they had created, and they set the fuse and run away. And Joe just kind of sits there cowering in the truck, which was weird. But they definitely should have backed those trucks up way farther. But it wouldn't have been.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't have been
Way
as suspenseful.
farther.
So.
Yeah. Well, what? Who was it? Was it Bimba? Who was it that saw the trucks and said that? Said it's like, these are too close. What are you doing?
Yeah,
There's no time. Just go.
I think that was
Go.
Bimba.
It was.
Yeah.
They because they realized at the last second that rocks were going to fall. Like,
yeah.
That didn't dawn on them until they had already lit the fuse, and then that was too late.
Yeah. And then Luigi goes back and doesn't die for some reason. He's going to try.
Amazingly.
But now, did you guys catch? Because every time I watch the film, I don't catch it until the very end, and I think there should have been a zoom at this point. But after the rock explodes, and Joe is sitting in the truck, kind of cowering with his hands over his head and whatnot, and he looks up, and these rocks are kind of rolling down the hill, and it shows this one shot, and this one rock is going down, and I always miss it until the very last second, but there's a jerry can sitting there, and this rock is like tumbling.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think they should have done a zoom to make that a little more clear, because every time I watch the movie, I'm like, why is he, that's there, right? So how clear was that to you guys, that jerry can? Did you guys notice it right away, or?
I didn't catch it at all until you just said it.
Yeah, I don't think it's very clear. That's like, I think they should have had a zoom in on the jerry can so you see what the danger is in that last. There's one more thing of danger right here, right? So,
Well, I assumed that's what it was, and then when I saw the jerry can, I was like, oh, yeah, because that's what it is. Because I knew they hadn't put the jerry can back in the truck.
Right.
And so all the time I'm thinking, where's that jerry can? Where did they put the jerry can? And then you see that rock, and I'm like, oh, no, they're not going to die. Too much in the movie left.
Well, somebody could have died before the ending.
Well, yeah,
I'm surprised Joe
did.
didn't die of a heart attack in the scene, honestly.
Yeah, because he's just super weak like a woman. Yeah, thanks, Mario. We know what you think of women already.
And then after this, they decide to have a toast and pee on the explosion, and everybody can pee on it except for Joe.
Although Joe's not. Joe's not.
He has his own
He's
toast.
got a shy bladder. He's got a shy bladder.
No, he says, fine, I'll toast myself.
I'll toast myself. Yeah. So they're all gonna have a toast, and they all pee on this hole, and then they don't invite Joe, and he's all upset that he doesn't get invited. I don't know about you, Kate, Brandi. You probably don't have this problem here, but Patrick and John, I can't pee next to somebody.
Nah, me neither.
Well, it depends on the circumstances. Just like in a public restroom, I got no problem with it. But like if I'm out in the woods or something, I'm not a fan of it.
If there's
even if there's dividers, I need a one stall, a one urinal spacing.
Yeah.
This is true for me as well. Because all we have is stalls. And even so, it's like if I'm in a stall by myself and there's nobody around and someone comes into the stall right next to me, I'm like, oh, no, come on.
Now I'm done. It's called...
Come on, one stall divider here. Come on.
It's like real estate. Location.
Exactly.
It's not a preference, but I guess I've just gotten old enough that it's just, it's like if it's got, To quote Sterling Hayden's character from The Godfather, you gotta go. So
at my work, there's 2 urinals in the men's bathroom right next to each other, and then there's 2 stalls. It's a pretty small bathroom. And if one person is at one of the urinals, I will go in the farthest stall in order.
And yet, we've had this conversation here on Warp 5 while talking about Wages of Fear, and I still don't understand how the bathroom situation on the Enterprise works. So we'll figure that out someday.
There's a topic for another episode.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so this leads us off to our final tense scene, which we have talked a little bit about already. Bimba and Luigi, also leading to one of the greatest shots of the film. Bimba and Luigi are just talking about what they're going to do when they're done. It cuts to Joe and Mario, and Joe is trying to roll a smoke. And all of a sudden, this huge gust of wind blows all his tobacco off his thing. They look up, and there's a huge flash of light, and Bimba and Luigi have exploded. And that shot of that tobacco getting blown off of that rolled cigarette is absolutely a masterpiece shot. Like, that is one of the greatest shots of, like, all time, I think.
It's the greatest scene of the movie.
Because somebody died. Patrick, you meanie.
Yeah, no, when the gust of wind happened, my initial reaction was, where the hell? Oh, no. It took me that split second. I was like, why is it so windy? Oh, well, that's sad.
I think they do it perfectly because the tobacco goes flying, right? And you see kind of a flash of light. But it doesn't really register in your brain yet that it was an explosion because they don't have a sound to it yet. And then it takes like a split second for you to hear the boom, and then the camera look up to the explosion itself, and you're like, I was like, wow, that's an awfully large gust of wind out of nowhere that no one was expecting. Oh, the truck blew up.
That is so amazing. Because it got all of us the same. Brandi, did you have the same thing? Because that's perfect. Because you're confused. You're like, what happened?
She's thinking these 3 are idiots. I knew from the beginning. No, that's what she's thinking.
I totally knew. It's the flash of light, and I'm like, no! Yeah, that was me at that moment. So I actually missed the tobacco being blown off of the paper because I saw the flash of light, and I was so upset. Because I knew what had happened. And I'm just like, you sons of motherless goats, you killed him off screen?
Off screen, too. Off screen.
Yes.
But brilliant.
But it's brilliant. It's a brilliant scene for different reasons for me because I was so upset by the flash of light. I didn't see all the great stuff that happened after that. So, sorry.
The tobacco in all seriousness, it is one of the best scenes I've ever seen, though.
Well,
Yeah,
but also, what
I'm
about
sure it's amazing.
what about the restraint, right? Like, again, to draw a comparison to modern filmmaking, I think they would show an exterior shot, truck going into ditch, cut to explosion.
That's fine, and I understand that. I like the way they did it.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about it.
Oh,
at
no,
all.
I don't think you are.
So,
no.
yeah, I think it was very well done. I think that they should have done it that way. But yeah, the minute I saw the flash of light, my heart just ripped into shreds.
On a completely unrelated topic, John, nothing to do here. Let me know what happens, how you feel after you watch the remake. Moving on.
Oh, I will. Absolutely. I will.
For that scene.
It's kind of a spoiler, isn't it?
So real quick though, one of the things you have to now like completely ignore though is there'd be a giant crater where that truck was.
But they don't ignore it.
What? No,
They don't really. There's no way they'd get by.
that's
That's the oil pill. That's the oil.
that's the
No,
pit
I
they
know,
go
but
through.
it's just-
You just think it would be bigger.
No, yeah, it wouldn't work. Like there would be no way of getting around that.
Okay.
They kind of made it too
Oh.
easy by just wrapping chain. He used the rope after he breaks his best friend's leg at that point.
Okay, so what
He grabs
happens
the rope.
is, so they drive up to the spot where the explosion was, which is just beautiful because there's all these destroyed trees, right? Like this, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that was done well.
And the oil pipeline that they've been driving next to has exploded and is just gushing out oil into the pit that the explosion has created and filling up. So they have to drive through this. And so Mr. Joe goes in and he starts fishing around and pulling out like junk and trees and crap that's under there so that the truck can drive through this divot in the road, this gigantic divot in the road. And while he's like guiding him through, he trips over a really large tree and Mario has said, you know what, I have to go through this. I can't stop. If I stop, I will get stuck. So as he's driving, Joe gets pinned under this tree because of the weight of the truck is pinning him down, and Mario just keeps driving and breaks his leg, and holy crap, he's covered in oil. Like he went underneath and he's just covered in oil, and it's one of the most iconic shots from the movie, and one of the most iconic images from the movie is Joe completely covered in oil, right? I remember the original cover for the Criterion release. I had no idea what this movie was when I bought it. And he's like sticking his head out of the thing, and he's like all black, and it looked like Riker coming out of Armus in The Next Generation, right? Is like kind of what it looked like, right? And but they show Joe sitting there, and his leg is just like twisted and like crushed. He's like sitting on the side. It's awesome, but he ends up getting stuck anyways. And I don't know. See, I didn't get the idea that Mario wanted to do that because Mario, I saw a disgusted expression on his face as he was driving over his leg.
But if he's truly disgusted, he stops. Like he's making a decision in that moment to be okay with doing the terrible thing. And I think that just because he's, oh, that sucks, like that's the disconnect, is he's not, he's not listening to that disgust, to that human emotion. He's just saying, well, okay, he's going to get crushed. Like that. That's what I'm talking about. Is like I wouldn't have gone on the trip to begin with, but in that situation, I would have spared the guy. I'd been like, I'm not going to roll over you. We'll find something else, or you know what, their nitroglycerin is going to sit here forever, and they can come up and move it. Like that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think part of it is that they want you to understand that there is no option for the nitroglycerin to sit there forever, or them to come and get it. That Joe and Mario have to get to the finish line at this point. There's no other truck. There's already 13 dead at the oil field as it is, right? Because 13 died in the initial explosion, and so there's that desperation. But there's also they need the money. They need the $2,000 each, and like you said, he does make the choice to roll over him. But a lot of times that's the choice that the workers are going to make, because if I roll over you and get to the other side, I have a better chance of getting you in the truck and getting you to help than if we get stuck here in the middle of a little oil lake. Well, it's created an oil lake, and we can't get this thing out ever again.
Then that's exactly how I see it. I don't know. I don't think Mario made the wrong choice, honestly, in this by driving over Joe's leg. I don't think he made the wrong choice.
I guess I'm just not built for driving trucks of nitroglycerin then. Yeah. I guess there's just something inside me that just wouldn't function in that situation.
You're human. John, do you want to
right?
road trip next year, John?
John?
Road trip? You want to go on a road trip?
Don't go with Brandon. Go with me. We'll be like Luigi and Bimba.
We're Luigi and Bimba, and these two guys, this is Mario and Joe right here. All right, we figured this out. It's a good thing there are 4 people here. We know who's in what truck. There you go.
As long as I'm not Linda, I'm good.
As long as I'm not the guy getting out to get you through the oil, I'm good.
So, what am I, Joe? True. Did you just Patrick Mario and I'm Joe?
Yeah, I'm Mario.
Okay, fine.
In the end, it all doesn't matter.
Yeah, in the end, so yeah, they get out.
True.
He pulls himself out with the wenches on the front. Is that wench? Is that the right word?
Yes.
And then they continue driving. Joe ends up dying. I guess I'm assuming from blood loss, right? Because he tried to tourniquet with his belt. Joe tried to do his own tourniquet on his leg, and he dies from blood loss. He finally gets there. Joe finally gets there. They put out the fire off screen, I guess, and he gets paid his money and he gets sent home.
Well, I find it interesting is he gets paid both their money.
Yes,
he gets the owners
should have got paid all 4.
He should have. Absolutely. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, but the other money was on the other truck.
Yeah.
But,
that's right. Yeah, right, because he said
they
literally put the money in the trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Which
no owner would ever do that because I would dump your nitroglycerin and leave.
Right.
That
seems...
It's an honorable time.
I guess I guess I just presumed that he was being figurative.
Yeah, metaphorical.
That, yeah.
But
yeah, okay. Whatever.
But whatever. He gives him the whole payment, which I guess is nice. I mean, whatever. It's a good thing. But he makes it out, like they get there and like now Joe's a hero. Mario's a hero. And then they open the door and like Joe's just laying there dead. That was kind of a weird scene. When they walk over and realize the other guy is actually there.
Oh, but I don't know, that's powerful. Like that's what they went through. There's a dead body in this truck.
Right. No, I agree. It was just kind of weird. Like he doesn't even mention there's a dead guy in there. Like someone else just opens the door and is like, dead guy.
Yes.
But and then we get to the final scene.
No, and that's where the movie ends, and it's done. Nothing else happens after that shot.
Wait a second.
I don't know.
Wait. No one falls off nothing?
Nothing.
Wasn't there like a stinger at the end of the credits?
There was a big
or something. I don't know.
There was a big dance number that happened. There was a phone call and a dance
there
number.
Was. Yeah, mm-hmm. I remember.
Magically, everyone in that whole town was a trained professional dancer. They didn't have any other job opportunities, but they were all professional dancers.
They had a lot of time to practice. I think.
That had a dance number at the end after somebody died. What am I thinking of? Now that you mention that. Anyways.
Oh, that could describe more than one film.
Yeah.
So we have the dance number, and then, like a Marvel movie, after the credits, we have a guy going back. No, it's not after the credits, but he is going back and forth on a road.
Oh, this pisses me off so much because I like Mario at this point of the movie. And then, so they get the notification, a phone call is made back to the bar that the 3 of them have died, and Mario is on his way back. And so so the bartender tells Linda, and Linda's all happy and excited, and they put on the radio and they start dancing to the Blue Danube. And Mario starts driving like a right? Like
I think.
Okay, yes, I have a beep in my. This pisses me off so much. This ending of this movie. Okay.
I didn't know you were capable of that language, Brandon.
I live in New York.
I have had some worldviews challenged in the last 30 seconds, Brandon-Shea.
What's that?
That is. I've just had some worldviews challenged by what you just said. That is shocking. That is shocking.
Wait a second.
I thought Canadians were nicer than that.
So I'm a construction worker in New York City, and I have been able to keep my cool for like 20 podcasts now without having to drop an F-bomb, and you do it now in front of me?
I'm sorry. This ending upsets me so badly because I love Mario at this point. And he starts driving like left and right. He's just swerving all over the road on
ironically
this dangerous
to
road.
The music. He's doing it to the music he can't hear.
Yeah, that he can't hear too, right? And
but
Clouseau amplifies it by like swinging the camera on an angle with it too. He just amplifies it even more.
But isn't
how
that
do you
the
know
point?
he doesn't hear the music? Because there's a radio
Could be
in
the
that
radio.
truck. So there you go.
That's a good
He's
point.
probably hearing the music. It just was such a coincidence that the town was dancing to that same music.
All in unison because they're all professional dancers.
Yes.
But like, seriously? I mean, isn't this the whole point of the movie? That death comes for everyone, and it doesn't matter what you do.
Can't the guy get a break?
This is
Well, actually, so now here's interesting. I didn't know whether I should be happy or sad for Linda.
So
He treated her like crap, but she really, really wanted him to come home.
Yes. And I got the impression that she like loved him for whatever reason. I mean, we didn't even talk about it at the beginning, but I got the impression, based on what I saw, that her boss is like using her for sexual favors as well, like because he sends her up to the room at one point, right? And then,
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. There is no qualm about it. He basically says, I wouldn't harm a hair on her head. I just want to give it to her real
Yes.
good.
Speaking
Go
of
upstairs
which,
and wait
go
for me in my
upstairs,
room.
right,
But
like-
and then never makes it upstairs. But
no, she does.
No, they do make it upstairs.
I thought
They do.
Yeah, he makes it
Well,
upstairs
Because she's
he pulls
waving
it-
out the
yeah.
window to Mario, and then Boss Man comes in
closes the
and
curtain.
pulls her
Oh,
away.
you're right.
and
Okay,
spits at him.
For some reason, I thought he went back outside. But yeah, but then now fast forward to the end of the movie. Now he's telling her, "Oh, Mario's coming back. Like it's some joyous event. Like he wasn't, basically raping her 2.5 hours ago."
Right.
Hmm.
And then
was like a day
she
and a half ago,
collapses, and this is that French expressionist craziness that happens in movies. And she like is dancing so much she ends up passing out like right at the moment that he drives off the edge of the cliff. And then the camera zooms in on, we didn't even talk about it on this subway ticket or whatever these got, zooms in on it. This alarm siren thing is going off, and then the big fin comes up, and I'm just like, you've just taken 10 years off my life with this ending of this movie.
Yeah, but speaking of the way that it's structured, like that definitely has an impact on a lot of film. And yeah, I mean, even like you see it in TV shows that at the end of episodes all the time now, of the juxtaposition of two different scenes with the music going over it. Like this has that ripple effect and definitely, reaches outward from this point and changes the way people approach certain types of filmmaking. No doubt. And I think it's beautifully done, and I think it speaks and supports the message of the philosophical discussion about death and its inevitability, and how are you going to face it, how are you going to fight it, and those sorts of things, which I think are really, I may watch this film again, and my interpretation of certain characters may change, or my interpretation of certain contexts may change, but I'm 100% certain that as painful as that ending might be in any circumstance, I think it's just inevitable. I think it's just unavoidable that it ends like that.
When he first went off the cliff and the truck hit the first time, I really honestly thought to myself, wait, he can survive 1 or 2 bounces here. And then when we got to like the third and the cab was in shreds and the back was gone, I was like, well, that didn't happen. Now coming from me, that's really odd because I do want to see the whole movie. I wanted him gone, but like Brandon, like I've actually started to like him. Like the way he treated Joe at the very end as Joe was dying, made me actually like the guy a little bit.
Have you guys seen Duel?
No.
It's Spielberg's first film. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. And there's a truck goes off at the end, and it reminded me of this. So I'm sure that Spielberg is like homaging this film here, right at the end of Duel. But even still, even with me hating this ending so much, it doesn't detract. And this is still like this movie's in my top 3 of all time. Like this is like literally one of my favorite movies of all time. I just love this movie so much, even hating the ending as much as I do hate the ending here. Before we wrap up with final thoughts here and stuff, I want to just talk a little bit about the episode that is referenced in this. So it's the season 1 episode Vox Sola, which is the one where that stringy white intelligent being thing goes on the ship and it traps Archer and Trip and a couple other people, and Hoshi has to figure out a way to talk with it. And it's a kind of a Hoshi story that she's coming to terms because she just had a challenge with talking with the Cretaceans, and there was a miscommunication between them, and Hoshi thought it was her fault. So it's kind of a character-building story for her. And the movie night that they're supposed to be watching is The Wages of Fear, which is a French film, and Reed and Mayweather try and boost Hoshi's confidence. They're like, you should come to the movie with us and have fun and relax a bit. And they're like, oh, those subtitles go by pretty fast. We could probably use a translator. Like, they're trying to make her feel good in the episode, right? But it's actually kind of surprising because the character Rostov, who's the first engineer to get captured by this monster, is like really excited to see this movie. So while he's hanging there from this white spider web-like thing, he's like, do you think they're still going to show the movie? Right? So they he's like dying and being sucked alive or whatever here, and he's like, I want to see the movie. And Archer promises that they'll show it next week. So, that's the episode that the movie's referenced here. I can't think of a parallel plot connection between the movie itself and the episode Vox Sola, other than the fact that they chose a French film and with subtitles, right? But anywho, and then I'll touch briefly on the remake, which is called Sorcerer, which was directed by William Friedkin, who did The Exorcist, and it is not as good as the original. There are some interesting scenes, and they don't do all of the tension parts the same. There are different ones, and there are some similar feeling ones. It's a half an hour shorter, but honestly, it takes almost as long to get into the truck sequences as it does, but it's well done. I just don't think it holds a candle. Now, I have read that this is one of Tarantino's favorite films of all time, Sorcerer, and so have at you what you will for that. So, anyways, but other than that, do we have any final thoughts on The Wages of Fear? We'll start with our guest, John.
I was just going to say, Brandon-Shea, that after viewing this, I have also I will probably, as much as I hate physical media, I will probably get the Criterion Collection Blu-ray, because this is a film I will revisit, because I found it so layered, and I found it so compelling and so bold for what it did and what it was trying to tell. So thank you for giving me the impetus to finally see Wages of Fear, because I had discussed it with somebody else who loved it, and this wound up being the spark that got me toward it, and I love discovering something where I'm that impressed with it.
Brandi, any final thoughts?
Well, when I finished the film, I said, great, that's something I'll never have to watch again. Again, I appreciate what the film means. I appreciate the subtext. I appreciate all of those things, but that doesn't mean that it was in any way enjoyable for me to watch. It was actually just really difficult for me. And so, yeah, people who love it, good for you. I'm so happy that you love it. I'm so happy that it's in your top 3, Brandon-Shea. I really am. It just didn't, it's not going to stay with me in a positive way. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. I'm glad you found some good stuff to talk about. I think we had a wonderful conversation on it. Patrick, you got any final thoughts on it? We have temporarily lost Patrick here. Oh, dear.
No.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no.
So I'll continue talking, and hopefully Patrick will come back here. Yeah, he just lost him
we
completely
lost him.
Here. So the next movie that we're going to be covering in our movie night is a really fun one. John, you are more than welcome to join us again, and I'll be extending the invitation to Mike. The next movie is the original, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh.
Woo!
Cool.
So now we get into something a little bit more interesting than The Wages of Fear. Maybe not.
I love it. No, I enjoy this film. It is really slow. The Day the Earth Stood Still is really slow.
What? The Day the Earth Stood Still is slow?
It's a bit slow.
Goodness.
But it's not slow in a bad way. Because everybody is expecting this sort of action sci-fi film, and that's not what this is about.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
Which, I guess...
I love the film. I absolutely love the film, and I love the story that it was originally based on. So I'm excited to talk about that one.
I guess you could also extend that semi-criticism of everybody who's expecting an action-oriented sci-fi film, and instead they got something slower, to Robert Wise's later film, Star Trek The Motion Picture.
Yes, yeah, Robert Wise, yes.
I love the motion picture. I don't care what anyone thinks.
I think we all do.
I
here.
love that movie.
We're all fans
I
of it.
love it. love it.
Unless John is not.
I wouldn't say I love it. I would say that I recognize technical achievements within it, but I wouldn't say that I love it.
Well, that's okay. I know a lot of people don't. I know tons of people don't. And I even saw it when I was a kid. I was like, when did that come out?
79.
79. I didn't see it in the theater. My parents weren't taking me to the theater when I was that age because of the Empire Strikes Back debacle. It was a long time before they let me go back to an actual theater viewing of anything. That's a story for another time. Anyway, so I think I saw it around 1981 when it was out on video, and I was just glued to the television. But it's the same thing with 2001: A Space Odyssey. Glued to the television, just 9-year-old kid. So
cool.
I guess I'm a weird one.
No. I mean, like, there's plenty. Like, I forget who I was talking with, but it might have been John Tenuto at some point. But we were talking about the soundtrack specifically and how it had to be scored without all of the effects done. If I'm remembering that part of the story correctly. But also, I think one of the things we latched onto was the fact that Wise, in a sense, directed it in a similar vein, and people will probably think I'm nuts for saying this, but in a similar vein to The Sound of Music. Like, there's a very musical type of quality to some of the structure to the motion picture. Like, you have the big musical numbers, the flying through the cloud, the Enterprise and space dock, and those sorts of things, and Day the Earth Stood Still. I'm sure I'm going to watch that
with that in mind. Thank you. You've given me a new perspective.
Oh, cool.
John, where can people find you when you're not trying to transport nitroglycerin over a bumpy road?
Well, for tips on not driving nitroglycerin around, you can find me online as Kessel Junkie. You can also find me right here on the network on Stage 9 with Mike Schindler. You can go over to the Nerd Party Network and hear me also with Mike Schindler on Great Shot Kid. You can find me co-hosting Aggressive Negotiations also on the Nerd Party with Matthew Rushing. And you can find me out there in the ether co-hosting Words with Nerds with my pal Craig. And then, every so often, I sleep.
Every once in a while. I got to say, I love Great Shot Kid. It's a lot of fun. I listen to it.
Thank you.
John, you got to make sure you keep releasing that for Saturday mornings, because I go grocery shopping on Saturday mornings and listen to Great Shot Kid. So
I'm trying, man. I'm trying to make sure we stick on the production schedule, but sometimes Saturday night or Sunday is just the most attainable.
Well, the best you could do, whatever you can. But just so you know, I love listening to Great Shot Kid while I grocery shop. It's my double GR day, groceries and Great Shot Kid.
Oh, very cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
And you guys, they had a wonderful discussion just this past episode on Looper, which I hadn't seen, and they gave a spoiler warning, which is good, so I had to pause and end up not listening to it while I was grocery shopping so that I could go and watch the movie first. But usually they do a very good job of not spoiling the film, unlike us over here on Warp 5. So,
well, you're definitely going to enjoy the tactic that we take for the Last Jedi discussion that Mike and I are going to have.
And I am eagerly anticipating the invitation to come on Great Shot Kid and talk RoboCop 2.
Oh, that's going to happen. That is going to happen. Trust me.
Excellent. Right on. Well, talking about the Wages of Fear is not all we've been doing here on the network this week, so please take a listen to this clip and see what else you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Earl Grey.
I actually hadn't watched the show, I'm embarrassed to say, but I sat down and I started watching and recording episodes, and I immediately had an idea for a script because I found Data to be the most interesting character.
To the journey!
So you could have, carbonated gog.
Carbonated gog? I'm trying to understand how this works. So the gawk are presumably a little squishy or juicy on the inside. So you're saying that in order to give them the appearance of life, they replicate it with carbonation inside the gawk.
Yes, to make them pop and fizz. Kind of like an Alka-Seltzer, you know?
Like
pop, fizz,
candy gawk.
Warp 5.
And I go into the job interview, and I'm just parroting back to him things he said in his interviews. But he didn't know that I was just doing that. I would say, the thing about Star Trek is that you could write it's a mystery one week, and it's a Western the next week. And I'm literally word for word things he said in an interview. So that's how I always feel. And I joke with him now that that's how I got the job. But
the 602 Club.
When we're talking about the idea of context in history,
I think this is the biggest issue that I see in this film, and with the Force Awakens too. When you put them together, because they're going to make a trilogy, is look, writing 101. If you don't know the past and the future of your characters, you absolutely 100% cannot write their present.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. And you will find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you are an Apple user, be sure to hit that subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And pretty please, leave us a star rating and a written review. It really, really helps people find the podcast. If you are not an Apple user, we totally got your backs. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place is to join the larger conversation in our group, the Babel Conference, which is our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose Send to a Show and select Warp 5. That should come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. Now, Patrick is still having his troubles, so you can find him in the Babel Conference, but you can also find him on Twitter at MagicDrop5. That's the number 5, not the word. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Shea. You can also find me here on the network with The Edge, which is our Star Trek Discovery podcast. And over on the Fandom Podcast Network, I have a little show called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast, which I do with my friends Chris and Tom. And I guess I should also mention that Patrick also has a show called The Briar Patch here on the network, which is a socio-economic podcast. Brandi, where can people find you when you're not stealing matches from your employer?
Well, I am on Twitter as BrandyWine12. That's Brandy with an I, not a Y. And I'm also always lurking in the Babel Conference. Plus, I co-host Live from the Edge when new episodes of Discovery are running. And that airs Monday nights, the day after the new episode airs, at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on YouTube. And people can join us and watch us stumble through it live. No, we've gotten to be old hands at that. We're just totally down with the live thing. But Bruce and I are both improvers, so we have a good time. And I also do a podcast with my husband called the Dark Corner Podcast on strangeanddeadly.com. And we talk about just basically whatever we want, but it usually ends up being a lot of pop culture things, looking at it through sort of a darker lens. And I use many colorful metaphors on that show. So just be warned, it is not for general audiences.
Like today's episode of Warp
5. That was just wow.
Oh, that ending upsets me so much.
I understand. I really honestly didn't know you were capable of that word. So it was eye-opening to say the least.
Excellent.
Oh, anyway, if you would like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. So visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the deets. And perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more, available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. Do you know how many podcasts are on Trek FM? That's lot.
Like 4.
So, yeah, that's like 4.
Or like 5.
So, maybe 5. So, but we really appreciate any support you all can give us and hope you'll join the team. And again, you will find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
And at this time, we'd like to thank our patrons who support this show and support the network as well. We couldn't do it without you. We'd like to send a big, huge thank you and a pat on the back to Norman C. Lau, Floyd Dorsey, Mike Morrison, Tim Cooper, Justin Ozer, Mark Flessa, and Joe Saltzman. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting Trek FM and Warp 5. We appreciate it. Well, I think that's just about it, Amy. So we're going to be trying to do Warp...
Did you just call me
Oh, my
Amy?
goodness, I did. Holy smokes.
I'm Dark Amy, if you want.
Amy. At least I didn't call you Linda.
Well, we've made jokes, because Amy and I are both from Utah, so we've made jokes that I am the Mirror Amy. So that makes me the evil one.
Brandi! We're going to be trying to do Warp 5 weekly. We're not sure if we'll be able to maintain that, but we're going to make a concerted effort to try, and we'll see how it goes. So, we do have our next 2 episodes planned out, so we'll just let you know what they are right now so you can prepare, as it's a little bit more quick. The next episode, we're going to have a guest on, Tim Robertson, who's been on The Edge, and he was on with Justin and I when we did our Golden Girls exclusive for the Patron Zone, and we're going to be talking about the episode First Flight and NASA, because Tim actually works for NASA. And after that, we're going to be finishing up our Season 3 retrospective with Season 3 Part 6. And I'm looking forward to that as well, where we'll be covering E2, The Council, Countdown, and 0 Hour. Well, that's everything for us today, I guess. So we'll see you guys again next time in the Ready Room, or I don't remember how Floyd finishes this off, because he always did it. Next time on Warp 5, Boomers. Excellent.
Bye.
Okay, Brandi, so we're going to just do the outro here. So, Patrick had a flood.
Oh, my Lord.
So that's why he's not here. So we'll just finish up with that.
Oh, no.
He sent me a picture here. I'll check it out in a minute here. But
oh, good Lord. Oh, no. I'm so upset for him.